Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back out to Giga-Texas. It is now the 3rd of January, 2024. Can you believe that? We're now well into the new year, and this is my first flight here at Giga-Texas this year. There's a few things that I want to get into in the intro, and then we'll get into the drone and fly around and take a look at how it looks on this rainy, low clouds and cold morning to start the year off. So let's get into the intro right now.
Now, in case you missed it, check out this video, which is a recapped drone video using video footage from January and December 2023. Gives you a good view of what happened at Giga-Texas. This particular video also did the same thing, but using slides, and it really gives you a good chance of seeing how specific areas around the site have changed. And then I did this one, which is a 4-year look back, which gives you a good idea of how things have changed since the beginning of construction. Now, all of these look-back videos shows what was happening at Giga-Texas, but worldwide, Tesla and its employees achieved some truly remarkable milestones. In Q4, they were producing approximately 495,000 vehicles, delivered about 484,000 of them. And in the full year 2023, 1.81 million delivered, about 38% year over year. Production was 1.85 million, about 35% up year over year. And just with all of the challenges that they faced in 2023, truly remarkable work. Now, don't forget, coming up on the 24th of January at 4:30 Central Time, which would be approximately 22:30 UTC, Tesla is having its annual earnings report, so make sure you look for that. So as we look forward, I've had people ask me, what do I think about Cybertruck production rate? It's hard to really say, but this is my guesstimate, so take it with a grain of salt. Your mileage may vary. I'm assuming a 12-hour shift per day with 2 hours downtime per shift. And I think that we're going to begin here at around the 200, 250 per week rate. That's about every 15 minutes a Cybertruck would be built. And I'll be looking to the outbound lot and some of the transportation to see how close this initial estimate is. Now, by the time we get through the end of the first quarter, I think that rate will come up to about 600 or so per week run rate. And that's about a Cybertruck every 6 minutes. So that should be noticeable, and we'll be able to see how that progresses. And then through the rest of the year, I think the production ramp will continue to gain some momentum. And by the time we get to the end of the fourth quarter, I think that run rate will be up to about 132,000 per year. And we'll see, of course. Now, with this blue line, this is sort of a cumulative deliveries that I'm kind of expecting to see. And again, we'll be able to judge this by what we're seeing in the outbound lot. But I think that by the end of 2024, I think about 80,000 vehicles will have been delivered to customers. Now, most of that will be at the end of the year versus the beginning of the year, as you can see by my estimated line. But we shall see if this, which I based on how the Model Y originally ramped here at Giga-Texas, we'll see if that is accurate or not. But anyway, those are my predictions, and that's my milestone markers that we'll be using to gauge how things are going as we continue to fly over Giga-Texas. So without further ado, let's get into the drone. Let's fly around and see how Giga-Texas looks like here on my first drone flight of 2024. If you would like to support my efforts, please consider using these links, which will be in the video description. If you are interested in Tesla products, you can help yourself and support me by using my referral code. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube video, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Well, good morning from a very wet, rainy, and much cooler Giga-Texas on this first day of flying for me in 2024. And there's a lot to see today despite the conditions. And we're going to start here on the west side of the highway, taking a look at the West Warehouse on Wheels, the West Support Facility area, this material staging, the contractor parking, and also the area on the far southwest where we've seen earthwork, grade work, gravel, and now final preparations for what appears to be another parking lot on the left-hand side of the screen. In the middle of the screen, we see more of the work continuing on that graded area, and it'll be interesting to see what that looks like when it is completed. As I turn back towards the factory, this is a good view from the west, looking to the east across this entire facility on this west side and how it appears today. As we get closer to the material staging, I'll bring the drone down a little bit lower. On the right-hand side of the screen, we can see the windows that were removed from the south end of the building. We see underneath the drone where the superchargers that will be installed at the south end of the new end-of-line facility. A lot of the steel items, some crates, some white wrapped items in the middle. Much of that is, with some of the green as well, is some of the materials that will be used to set up the assembly lines inside the factory. And then here on the west side next to the homes, we see continued work with some trenching, bloop water pipe that is going in on the left-hand side, the medians, and some of the pave work. And you can tell that there's going to be a Y intersection here, and then the road will continue off towards the right underneath the drone towards that new clearing location. On the outbound lot, we can get a good sense of the work that has been going on with the trenching for the lighting on the center and left side of the screen. We can also see some more of the concrete parts on the right, the section that has already had the paving, and I expect to see that increasing in size very soon, and then in some of the storage containers here as well. More trenching getting closer to the facility now for the lighting, as you can tell in the middle of the screen. You can also tell with all of the water and the mud, just the tremendous amount of rain that we've had in the last 24 hours through the entire area. And we're going to see this being a complicating factor throughout our tour through the site today. The north end of the end-of-line facility continues to have work done on the right side, preparing for what may be receiving doors or some larger doors. And then we can also see the bottom of the screen work going on for that conduit that connects the electricity to the main factory. As we fly along the east side, you can get a good sense of the fact that there's so much mud, so much water here. There's not a lot of work being done here until that dries out. The south end, this is where that supercharger system is going to be put in. It's also going to have a covered canopy. You can see a lot of the electrical conduit that is being done as well. Also, some of the vaults have been put in down in that water section where the trenching was. And then here again are those cement silos on the right, also cement sections or concrete sections of the tunnel, and then some of those small containers that have some of those tanks in them. All of this is the boring company equipment. And once we get on the other side of the highway, I'll give you a diagram of where I think possibly some of these boring tunnels may be constructed, starting on this side and going underneath the highway. But again, that'll be some speculation, and we'll talk about that diagram here in a second. As we fly up towards the south end of the end-of-line facility, this is another good view of where the supercharger installation will be, the mounts for the columns that will hold up that canopy, and also the more of that conduit that is being put in to support all of those superchargers. On the west side of the facility is a good view of just the conditions, some of the water in the trenches, the three self-contained heating and ventilation systems that have been installed, plus the ductwork that is now connecting and allowing them to provide environmental control inside of this particular facility, and just some more work that is being done here on this west side. As we fly up further to the north, you can see just again more of the water that is standing, and also in some of those detention ponds. Just a tremendous amount of rain in the last 24 hours. This material staging location with the white tents and the materials and containers, this has been supporting some of the construction around the site for over a year now. It used to have some of the landscape materials, but in my previous video I showed you where those were located to the north of the mobile batch plant, and that's also to the north of the electrical switch yard. So as we get up here towards the northwest corner of the building, I'll kind of give you a good angled view of how Giga-Texas looks today. Of course, with all of the steam rising from the top of the factory, it's a function of just how much cooler it is today and some of the conditions that are making it a little bit misty and those low clouds. Now, as we've come across the highway, we'll fly down the west side to the south, and we'll come back to the north side in a little later in the video. But as we fly along this side of the building and we head towards the south, I want to show you the current status of this ramp removal. And you can see that the retaining walls and the ramp itself have been removed, a lot of the dirt in the middle, and also because of all the rains, we got a bit of a pond here as well. So obviously this is not being used at the moment, and the construction, whatever is going to replace that, is on halt until we can see the weather dry up and the ground dry as well. As we continue to fly down the south side of the building, you can see buses bringing employees in to work to begin a new shift today. Also, the temporary end of line on the left-hand side, you can see that there's lights and some activity on the inside, but not a whole lot of Model Ys here on the outside. However, on the east side, we're going to see that Model Y production is definitely at a fairly high rate right now. The main entrance, this is how it looks today. With all of the rain, it's kind of cleaned off that stone glass material, and not really a lot of changes on that structure in the last several weeks. More activity here on the west side next to these receiving doors. A lot of materials being brought in for the Cybertruck production. Speaking of which, you can see that there's only 4 Cybertrucks here where there used to be a lot. They've all been moved over to the east side, and this is that illustration I wanted to show you. Is it's possible that this yellow area with some of those diagrams showing where there might be tunnels, this may be where it crosses underneath the road and exits on this particular section. So it may be why it's being cleared out as well, but that'll be something to have to look at. Again, that's kind of speculation on my part. We see some materials have been delivered on the bottom of the screen. Looks like they've been unwrapped and they're taking the containers away, and a good look at the activity on the 2 platforms. On the south end, there is quite a bit of work being done by the crews on the ground. The perimeter grade beam, you can see the formwork here on the west side, and it's approaching into the building. The outline of the extension is very visible now by looking at that perimeter grade beam. Also, a lot of the water and amongst the footings that have been constructed. And we'll come back for a closer view here in just a minute or two, but I wanted to show you this southwest side of the site. What we see by the bridge is more of the work that is being done to do additions to the Giga water loop, which is part of a water system here at Giga-Texas. You can see the crews with the trench box next to the white truck. You see the other truck holding up the telephone pole, and that's because the guy wires were removed and they're getting ready to put an HDPE pipe in on this section. As I turn back, you can see the power plant on the right, River Road going off into the distance in the middle of the right of the screen, the cyber pond, and then of course the steelwork that is now growing even larger for that extension. So let's fly in a little bit closer and get some more detail. You see crews near where these crates are. Those are the crates with the glass, and they're very similar to the 3 panes that are already installed. You can also see that beam that the top part of the glass is installed on. They have these little pads along them. Keep that in mind. That's sort of the mounting point for the glass. So we're going to see more of that here as we continue to fly the drone. And it suggests that we're going to see that glass continue completely along the south side of the building. You can tell that steel has been added all the way to the perimeter grade beam now on this south side, and you can see more of the steel being prepared, also the decking being installed on the second floor. And then here is more of the steel. You can see those pads as I mentioned, on some of those beams. And I think that that's going to go along the south side of the building, and then the glass panels will be attached to that. So we may see an extensive amount of glass on this new extension on this side, at least over where the perimeter grade beam is located. Now, as I come down a little bit lower, we can see that some of the forms are being removed here, and also other forms have been installed. The rebar is being placed, and they're getting ready to pour this section of the concrete as well. And as I pan back around towards the north and then the east, this gives you a good look at how some of the footings are changing with some of those extensions, how some of them are still low in this middle section, and then of course where many of these concrete column bases have been installed already. As we fly up towards the gap between the stamping 2 on the left and the main structure, this gives you a good view of how this is looking. And again, with all of the water, just the amount of mud that the crews are having to deal with today. On this southeast corner, that concrete slab looks like it's completely cured now, and it's just waiting to see what the next phase of construction is going to be here. As we fly up over this corner of the building, we can get a good sense of the materials and the activity that is going on here on just the east side of the stamping machine section of the main factory. And of course, across the power lines, we can see how this multi-level parking garage is continuing to grow. I'm doing a little bit of research. I've had some Patreons provide me some information about the size and capacity of this particular garage. Some of my Patreons, based on some of their own research, have said that they think that this could hold up to about maybe 11 to 12,000 vehicles. And if that is the case, then that would make this parking garage one of the largest in the world. And we'll have to see how it continues to develop and get some more of the dimensions, but based on the permit, they say that the space is about 1.7 million square feet, 7 different floors, and again, it could be 11 to 12,000 vehicles. So this thing is going to be gigantic when it is completed. We do see some of the double T's on the trucks at the bottom getting ready to be moved up to complete that new extension you see on the center right going towards the north. We can see on the east side where it has extended out that they've gotten all the way up to the roof level, and more of the double T's have just arrived as well. The footing work continues, although there is some ponding of water, and it just gives you a sense of how much larger that structure is going to be. A lot of these cement or concrete parts that you see having been delivered are all part of that garage, so they are arriving just about as fast as they are being installed onto the structure itself. So as we turn back towards the testing and calibration lot, it's a good view of the main factory, the steam that's coming up off the roof. Also, just how busy the testing and calibration lot is. A lot of the Model Ys are getting, well, it looks like a update of software. And we see a Cybertruck doing some turn tests on the helicopter pad. And we're going to see a lot of Cybertrucks all over the site today, so I'm not going to spend too much time trying to track down any one individual, just because there are just so many of them now. But as we continue to fly over the testing and calibration lot, again, the number of Model Ys is just really ramped up significantly. We see some here, also some Cybertrucks at the supercharger. And as we look across the road, you get a good sense of the work that is being done near that secondary east entrance, with that apron and some of those receiving doors. And here on the north end, we can see more of that apron work that's just waiting to have that concrete poured. And the receiving doors there have been mostly completed as well. As we turn back towards the east parking site, you can get a good sense of the activity here, the number of employee vehicles, and of course the outbound lot, which has some very interesting developments here. A Cybertruck driving down the right-hand side of the screen. We see about 15 Cybertrucks here on the outbound lot. Most of them are in a different location now, further to the east, and they're kind of in and amongst many of the Model Ys. Speaking of the Model Ys, again, this gives you a good sense of just how the production numbers of the Model Ys have definitely ramped up to a higher level. I wouldn't be surprised if in the fairly near future, if they sustain this rate, that we hear that they're above 5,000 per week again, and hopefully we'll hear that from Tesla. There's some more Cybertrucks here parked next to the fence. There's about 7 of them next to that trailer, and several more here on the left-hand side. And based on our discussion in my intro, here's some more Cybertrucks amongst the Model Ys. I think that the rate of 1 per 15 minutes is probably fairly accurate right now, and I'll be continuing to monitor to see if that rate measurably increases over the coming days. Work to complete the conduit here looks like it's mostly completed now. Some of the new conduit just still needs to be filled back in with some of the trenching. And we see the number of castings here on the east side of the casting machine structure. And this is a mix of both Model Ys and Cybertrucks. The manifold for the flue for the furnace is still in the ground here. There's also several other pipes. So it looks like the work to connect those furnaces to this flue that you see sticking up out of the roof at the bottom of the screen is continuing. Also, more of the ventilation shafts and those ducted fan work installation continues on the roof on the casting machine structure. We see that work on the berm, especially with all that plastic, continues, and it looks like they're widening it even more. And the walkway that we see amongst those trees and across the road, all that concrete was poured on my previous video. It looks like it's mostly cured. As we wrap around the northeast side of the building towards the north side, we see yet another Cybertruck here next to these trailers. And we also see that one that has been covered still sitting in front of this platform for the paint shop. It hasn't moved in weeks, so I don't know what the status is of that. We do see some interesting deliveries here and activity next to the 4680 battery cell production portion of the factory. The red truck at the bottom with these columns, I believe, are actually for the south end, and later on I noticed that this truck moved off and it headed towards the south end. But we also see continued work to finish up the construction inside here. Now, I've heard some people say that they think there's only going to be 5 lines for 4680s. The actual answer is 8. There will be 8 lines once all of this work is completed, and all of that should be online at the latter half of 2024. Currently, there is 1 plus 3 more lines that are operational and being ramped up right now to produce the 4680s. There's some additional work that is going on with the mixture of chemicals, composition for the 4680s, and I'll talk about that in a future video. But it's really exciting to hear that the progress in the 4680s is going to make a large leap here very soon. As we approach up towards the Megapack site, we can see that this material staging area is continuing to be cleared out because the final stages of the Megapack are just about completed. We do see that there's some final inspection work being done on the Megapacks, but not a whole lot. The bulk of the work that is going on is here at the north end. You can see some of these white trucks, some of the utility crews here, and what they are doing is they are installing replacement, I think they're called insulators here on this north end. I'll throw up an arrow so you get a good chance of what I'm talking about, but you can see that they're placing a replacement part on one of them, and in the middle the replacement part has been added, and they've been finishing up some of the connections. And I believe that this is the last part that is needed, plus the connections, before they can take those breakers on the left of the screen and connect them and finally have the Megapack system operational. So I think this is great that we're able to see this work going on right now here today, and it bodes well for the Megapack being connected to the grid here very soon. On the north end of the electrical switch yard, the pole on the right with all of those connections is part of that Megapack site. And with that being done and the work that we saw be done earlier, again, I think it's great news for the Megapack site here at Giga-Texas. So as we continue to fly towards the south along this area over these temporary offices that are used by Tesla, we can get a good sense of this east side, the parking lot, and the overflow lot, and just how busy it is here today. Again, with what I saw with the production, particularly with the Model Ys, that kind of supports why we see so many employees right now. And I think it's the start of a very big quarter for Tesla. The die shop and the battery cathode plant is the area that is suffering the most with all of the rains, and you'll see quite a bit of water here all over the site, so it's complicating some of the activities. What we do see here is some of the utility crews working on these power lines. I think that we're going to see these power lines removed soon because all of the underground electrical conduit over to this side, all the way over to the electrical switch yard, is complete or nearly completed, and the need for these power lines may no longer require them being here. As we see in the alleyway, more of the concrete pours underway near where we see those concrete vaults where the electrical conduit goes through, and that work must be completed if they are doing these concrete pours to finish out this section of the apron. And this middle section with the pipe sticking up is probably the next area that we'll see some of the concrete. As we fly up over the chiller plant, a good close-in view of what is going on here. Continued work to finish out this particular installation. The other thing that I noticed is this green section. There was a lift earlier with a worker up there. It looks like maybe they're preparing this to be finished off, and then maybe that will be another completed section. As I pan the drone on the west side, another good look at just how much of the ponded water is here. You can see how this is creating issues, especially for that trailer and some of the vehicles. And despite some of the pavement, we're still seeing a lot of the water here. More on this section as well. And this is why we see them installing such a robust water management system under the ground for this entire section. Now, as I continued to pan back, I noticed, unfortunately, some crews just had probably a very bad day for them. I'll zoom in here. You can see that they started to drive thinking that this was a lot not as deep as it was, and they ended up getting stuck. So 4 of the crew have to bail out of that particular small golf cart kind of thing, and then they're going to have that pulled out. But that gives you a good sense of just how deep some of the water is here, and how and why I think it is basically a factor that is complicating some of the work that is going on. The lift station is getting some additional work here today. The northeast corner material staging and also some of the excavation area is pretty much a giant mud pit right now, so there's not a whole lot of activity. But as I fly around, this gives you a good view of some of the materials that are still here. Next to these 2 kind of cylindrical items in those cages on the center bottom of the screen, we also see a gantry crane. It's that red one with Tesla, and then those items that are around it, those are the platforms that the gantry crane will be attached to once it's installed somewhere inside either the battery cathode plant or the die shop. The rains are definitely felt here on the east side of the battery cathode plant. The wade fit is nearly completely full. All of this is rainwater. And so if they wanted to do a floating test of a Cybertruck, now would be the time to do it because there's plenty of water there. We also see a pump truck getting ready for activity, and it may be to pump in some concrete for this outfall channel. Of course, you can see just how much water is in the water detention pond right now. It's quite full. And of course, we see some of the activity in and around the crash test lab, which is fortunately out of the water right now. So I'm sure that they're very thankful for that. So that'll bring to a close the flight here on my first flying day of 2024. Give you a good view from the east, looking to the west, back towards the main factory, and how everything looks with the construction going on. You can also get a good sense of how the length of the building will change on the left-hand side of the screen. As always, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Happy New Year, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.